Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Hawks Latest, your number one source for news, updates, rumors, opinions, and you guessed it, the latest and the greatest regarding the Atlanta Hawks. I'm your host, Zach Langley, aka Langley ATL. Today, we've got a loaded video that's going to unpack some bold claims coming out of the Hawks front office. Some executives got to speak up, and we're going to talk about that. They talked about how this is, one of the best off seasons in the entire league, and I couldn't agree more. We're going to break down what exactly the executives are saying. Look at two intriguing free agent point guard options still on the table. We've talked a lot about centers, but I'm going to bring up two players in particular that we haven't talked about on this channel that I think we should at least start to look at now as, the center market does, start to get a little more dry. We're also going to wrap things up with some early 2025-2026 standings predictions. I put them out on my Twitter yesterday. I'm going to be kind of breaking that down and justifying why I think each team is going to be where they are. And this is still 3 months away, so take it with a grain of salt, but this is what I believe now. So we're gonna in that we're gonna include where the Hawks may land in the Eastern Conference that is wide open this year. So without further ado, let's jump right into it and talk about how the Atlanta Hawks front office has made it clear. They believe they've had one of the best off seasons in the NBA, and I think that's the general consensus among league personnel. In a recent report by Keith Smith of Spotrac, one Hawks executive said, quote, "We feel like we had one of the best off seasons in the entire league." So what moves are they so confident about? Let's start with the big names. Kristaps Porzingis was the headliner, and his arrival in Atlanta could provide the rim protection and floor spacing that the front court has been lacking for years. If healthy, he immediately boosts the ceiling of this roster, and he's going to be a great seamless fit as long as he stays healthy. Then there's some of the second unit players like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Luke Kennard, two guards with versatile skill sets. I mean, Na brings defensive toughness, definitely one of the better bench defenders in the league, and slashing, off-ball movement, catch and shoot. Well, I mean, Kennard adds this elite perimeter shooting that's actually ranked among the top three-point shooters ever. He's also an underrated playmaker and is going to space the floor in multiple ways. Together they add real depth and balance to a rotation that struggled to maintain consistency last season, obviously with injuries. But none of these offseason moves really happened without the belief that the front office had in last year's number one overall pick, Zach Langley. So after a somewhat quiet start to his rookie year, the French forward exploded post-Christmas. He averaged 14 points a game on an extremely efficient 50, 40, 73 shooting splits. So definitely really efficient. That free throw shot definitely needs some work, but it's clear that he is becoming an elite shooter in the NBA, so that free throw is obviously going to come with it. Over the final 45 contests, so definitely some consistency being shown, and reliability. This is a thing that he can do on a nightly basis. One executive actually told Smith, Zachary gave us the confidence to add to that roster. If going into this season with like a clear-cut starting three is definitely a major development, because the Hawks in recent years have had Hunter, and then it was the question of whether they would start Hunter or Ricochet. They ended up starting Hunter, but a lot of like uncertainty in previous years, but now they just have that starting five with certainty. The only thing that we have a question about is the five spot. Right now, I would think that would be Kristaps Porzingis, but you never know. The Hawks, with Porzingis on a 1-year deal, might decide to we'll just bring him off the bench and start Onyeka because he's the future there. We don't really know how that's going to work. We won't know until I guess training camp comes to a close, or really as preseason begins and we actually see the lineups. The team doubled down on its youth movement. They drafted Asa Newell, who has already impressed coaches with his defensive motor and rebounding, specifically on the offensive end. One coach described the draft as a home run, saying that Newell brings a unique element to the front court, and that he certainly does. It doesn't stop there, though. The Hawks also snagged an extra 2026 first-round pick via a draft night deal with New Orleans, where they fleeced the Pelicans once again. We talked in yesterday's episode about how the Hawks had, fleeced New Orleans previously, and then obviously in this previous draft, it's looking like they are going to fleece them again. We just got to see where that pick specifically lands and how Derek Queen, develops as a player. One name to watch in the coming weeks is Dyson Daniels. He's, been a very, very strong two-way presence, definitely. He was the most improved player last year, and he should have been Defensive Player of the Year, but they weren't going to give him 2 awards. He's been a great compliment to Trae Young. The Hawks are reportedly working on a contract extension, and both sides are optimistic about reaching a deal soon. I definitely think that will get done, maybe before the Trae extension. I think the Hawks want to go ahead and lock up Dyson not let him hit restricted free agency as well. Still, though, there is some internal debate about former first-round pick Kobe Buffkin. A scout did express concern over his shooting consistency and ability to stay healthy. I think both of which are very valid concerns, just given his history in the league. Through 2 seasons so far, he hasn't shown any sort of ability to stay on the floor. When he's been on the floor, he hasn't been very great. He's shown some defensive flashes, but the shot just has not been consistent at all. The shot wasn't consistent in Summer League, but he did look like a real floor general who was great on the defensive end. So there's still potential there, and I just want to see him put it together. And I think he can. We just gotta see him stay healthy. He's like I said, he showed all those flashes in Summer League, but just not consistency. The team might not be ready to fully rely on him, as the primary backup point guard, and I think. There's obviously some rumors that the Hawks are going to run Luke Kennard at the backup point, which he can do, and I think that's probably the most realistic option. They're going to run Luke Kennard on most of the backup point guard minutes, but then they also have ball handlers off the bench like Vit Krejci. We ran him at point guard a little bit last season. That didn't really work out. That was definitely Vit was definitely more inconsistent than he has been. Especially like all of last year, just because he was in a completely different role. But this is someone in Buffkin that has potential, and I think Atlanta views him as the future backup point guard. They just might not be ready to rely on him, and that brings us into our next segment. So we've been talking about. Like I said earlier, we've been talking about free agent centers and who the Hawks could potentially bring in that third center spot with the last roster spot. So. And that's what all signs point to, but there is a growing case for another point guard just given Buffkin's play and just the uncertainty around them. Enter Jared Butler, the 6'3 guard, just 24 years old, definitely fits Atlanta's timeline, was recently let go by the 76ers. They can still bring him back, but they chose to decline his option, making him an unrestricted free agent. No qualifying offer was tendered. After bouncing around the league for a few years, Butler, may have finally found his stride. He definitely had his best season as a player last season. In the 2024-25 season, which was, split between Washington and then traded to Philadelphia, Butler appeared in 60 games. He averaged 9 points, almost 4 assists, and almost 2 rebounds. 45% from the field, 36% from 3, 82% from the line. Pretty good consistency, pretty good, efficiency from a smaller point guard who was definitely a bench piece. He doesn't, need the ball in his hands necessarily to be effective. He can run an offense. He fits the Hawks timeline, like I said, in terms of age and development. He would kind of be a great push for Buffkin in camp and offer some more insurance behind Trae Young because it's so inexperienced behind Trae Young. Atlanta's aiming to contend in the East as early as this upcoming season, and just having so much uncertainty at that backup one is just a little bit of a risk to go into with. We've seen the results of Trae Young having a reliable scorer or playmaker just off the bench in his spot when he goes to the floor, because there's been times in Hawks basketball where the offense just goes completely stagnant when Trae Young goes to the bench, which isn't good, and you can't maintain a level of consistency and maintain a good record in the NBA, which is at its talent peak. This is the most talented the league has ever been. But is Butler the best veteran option? Maybe not. He's not really a veteran either. That title might belong to someone with a far deeper resume and definitely some more experience in this league. Let's talk about Malcolm Brogdon. So this is a name that really needs no introduction. A lot of you are probably familiar with Brogdon. He's the former Rookie of the Year. He won Rookie of the Year in Milwaukee, and then a few years later when he went to Indiana, and then he went to Boston. He's also a former Sixth Man of the Year. He can be very efficient when he's healthy. The key word is when healthy. Over the past 2 seasons, Brogdon has only played in a total of 63 games. Definitely not good. It was split between Portland and Washington, though. Teams with not a lot of incentive to win, and they weren't necessarily rushing back a veteran who's, definitely aging a little bit. They weren't rushing him back, and they focused on development and definitely a little bit of tanking here and there. Maybe Brogdon needs a new home. When he's available, he's good. He's a very good scorer and very solid playmaker. Back in 2022-23 with the Boston Celtics, Brogdon shot 44% from 3. That's ridiculous. He posted a true shooting percentage above 61%. Very, very good efficiency. Definitely a key contributor to that Boston Celtics team. Since entering the league in 2016, he's been a proven scorer, playmaker, and locker room leader. Also a pretty decent defender. Brogdon made $22.5 million last season, but his market value has clearly significantly dropped considering he hasn't been picked up quite yet. And that could make him a very affordable veteran option for a team like Atlanta, who has some real uncertainty at the backup point guard. He's definitely a reliable option if he were to stay healthy. So here's the bottom line, though. I mean, if the Hawks want an experienced hand to stabilize the second unit and help lead in high pressure moments, Brogdon could just be the guy. If they're leaning younger, more developmental, maybe Jared Butler is a more natural fit. He matches the timeline a little better. But either way, expect Atlanta to fill that 15th roster spot soon, whether it's a big man, which is what's looking more likely, or a point guard. I don't think they go wing with this last spot, especially after the reported Caleb Houston signing. So now let's close things out with just a bit of an interesting thing, a little fun thing. I put together my way too early 2025, 2026 standings predictions. Now that we're 3 months away from the season, I think I'm going to do one at the benchmark of 2 months to the season and then 1 month from the season. Then I'll put out one more right before the season just to see, what opinions may change over that and, what other things that teams do. Like I said, a lot can, change between now and opening night. But here's how I think things might shape up just based on current rosters and injuries and offseason moves. Let's start out west. We'll finish with the East because, is obviously where the Hawks are. Here are my Western Conference predictions. So I have the Thunder as the 1 seed. I think that's a given. I don't need to explain that one too much. I have the Nuggets actually at the 2 seed. I think with their addition of Cam Johnson, replacing Michael Porter Jr. with Cam Johnson, I think that was definitely a great move, and I think that is a move into contention in the Western Conference. I also like them bringing back Bruce Brown. He was a key contributor to their finals run, so I definitely like them bringing him back. I actually have the Rockets at 3. I think they'll kind of not necessarily take a step back. They honestly could be better than they were last year, obviously, with Kevin Durant. I just think I like Denver's specific acquisitions more. And then 4 and 5, I have them either being Lakers or Clippers. I think one of Lakers and Clippers will be 4, one of Lakers and Clippers will be 5. They can be interchangeable. I think both teams kind of made lateral moves this offseason. The Timberwolves, I mean, I can't see they didn't do enough to improve in this loaded Western Conference, and then we got in that 7 spot we got the Mavericks, and this is for the play-in: Mavericks, Suns, Grizzlies, Warriors. I hate that the Warriors haven't made a single move this offseason. I think it was necessary for them to. And then, Mavericks, Suns. I actually do kind of like what the Suns did this offseason, how they retooled that team after trading Kevin Durant. But I just don't think that roster is good enough to really be out of the play-in. And then outside of the play-in, I have Spurs, Blazers, Kings, Pelicans, Jazz. I definitely have the Pelicans being very bad once again. I don't think the Spurs are going to take the leap everyone's expecting them to. I don't know about their long-term future. I'm not the biggest fan of them getting, Harper and Castle and, De'Aaron Fox as well. I think if they could go back on the De'Aaron Fox trade, they would. It's just something to really think about. I don't, especially next year, I don't think they will make any noise particularly. Blazers have a solid young core, but it's just something. It's a situation of the West is just so stacked. I don't see who I'd put them over. And then Jazz, the story. I think the Kings also take that big step back. So now let's move on to the East. This is where the Hawks are, and I definitely have. I wouldn't say this is a bold prediction, just given how great of an offseason they've had. But so I have the Knicks as the 1 seed. That might be a little controversial. I definitely think the Knicks made the right moves this offseason. I was very critical of them. And I still don't think they're going to be a postseason team. I think this is still a regular season team, but I like the acquisition of Jordan Clarkson on that cheap deal, and I like firing Tom Thibodeau for Mike Brown. I think that was a very underrated move that can push them into, more of a dominant spot. I don't really believe in them when the postseason comes around still, but I definitely think they'll be the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference this year. I have the Cavaliers at 2. I don't think that 64 win was, I wouldn't say it's a fluke, but it definitely isn't something that's going to be sustainable. I think they take a little bit of a natural step back. And then 3 and 4, I have it interchangeable between the Hawks and Magic. Right now, I'd probably lean Hawks 3. That could change. I think at the end of the day, the Hawks are going to, their experience, I guess, and, just overall spacing and shot creation ability is going to outweigh Orlando's tenacious defensive lineup. And then now Pistons at 5. I think they'll kind of be the same as they were last year. I think they lost a key contributor in Malik Beasley. I think that's going to be a little harder to replace than they may think. And then we've got the Miami Heat at 6. I do kind of like what they did this offseason. They didn't do a lot, but they brought in Norman Powell, and I don't really believe in that roster too much, but they're very well coached, and it's a very talented roster. So now in the play-in, we've got the Pacers, Bucks, Raptors, Sixers. I think the Pacers will take a little bit of a step back, but not too much. I think Halliburton's contributions can be replaced, as controversial as that may be. And then the Bucks, it's just not a very good roster outside of Giannis Antetokounmpo, unfortunately. Raptors, I think they'll be in that play-in spot. And then I have the Sixers at 10. I think there's too much talent on that roster for them to drop completely out of the play-in. I just don't believe in the health. I don't believe in Jared McCain. And I believe in Jared McCain in general, but I don't believe in the backcourt between him and Tyrese Maxey. And then I think PG could take another step back. And I don't know. It's just, I also think Quentin Grimes might come down to earth a little bit and be the role player that he, is. It's just an interesting situation. I think they need to develop some sort of identity before they can make any real step in the Eastern Conference. Outside of the play-in, I've got the Celtics, Hornets, Bulls, Wizards, Nets. That Celtics roster looks pretty bad. They're going to be pretty rough next season, but if they sneak into that play-in, I'd be a little scared of the possibility of Tatum coming back and then them having a fully healthy team. But for right now, they're starting Georges Niang at the 4. And shout out to George, but as a starting 4 in today's NBA, it's definitely not sustainable for wins. And then, Nets, Wizards, Bulls, I think that's self-explanatory. I think the Hornets will take a little bit of a step, but it's not going to be anything crazy. So that's going to be kind of my predictions for right now, 3 months ahead of the seasons. I've got 3 months ahead of the season. I've got the Hawks in the top 3, maybe at 4. It really just depends on health. That Hawks-Orlando rivalry over the course of the season is going to be really fun to pay attention to, and I really can't wait for those games. So that's going to do it for today's episode of Hawks Latest. If you enjoyed the breakdown, please give it a like. Subscribe for more deep dives all off-season long, and let me know in the comments. Would you rather the Hawks sign Jared Butler or Malcolm Brogdon if you had to pick between the two? And where do you have Atlanta finishing in the East 3 months away from the season? As always, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Hawks Latest, and I'll see you guys next time.